Renovating Retirement with Charlie Jewett. Oh no, I think I'm about to have another episode.
All right, everybody, Charlie Jewett with Renovating Retirement, and I cannot wait to get into this one today. One of my good friends in the industry. We're going to start a three-part series here, at least 3 parts, but I'd like to introduce you to Jim Carroll. Jim, how you doing today?
Doing great, man. What's going on?
I am excited. We're going to start a trifecta. We're like the Matrix. Wasn't there only 3 of those, I think, right? We could have said that about Star Wars until they started making hundreds of them.
Star Wars 19, right?
Star Wars 19, Rocky 56. I think Creed 2 is coming out. Sylvester Stallone. It's like, of all the people in the universe who figured out what they're good at and milked it, Sylvester Stallone wins, I think.
He has done that.
He's did a good job. Oh, the lip and the accent. He did it. But I'm from Philly, so I got a soft spot in my heart for Sylvester Stallone. I actually was walking. Want to hear a crazy story that I didn't plan to tell?
All right.
I need exercise, so I was staying somewhere in a hotel the other day, and I looked up the closest grocery store, and it was like 30 minutes. I'm like, I really should walk. I really shouldn't just Uber. I should walk, right? So I'm walking to the grocery store, and on the ground, I see a golf ball. So I pick up the golf ball, and what do you naturally do if you're walking and you have like a bouncing ball, right? You throw it off the concrete, right? And I'm walking, throwing this ball off the concrete and thinking, dude, I'm from Philadelphia. I'm walking. I am Sylvester Stallone right now. So I started singing Eye of the Tiger to myself, just feeling like a badass. It was awesome.
Now, did you have the visual of you running up the steps, the whole deal?
I'm not that in shape. I'm struggling with a 30-minute walk. I'm not ready for the Stairmaster. Calm down, Jim.
There we go.
Anyway, let's end the show there. That was really a lot of helpful content on retirement. Good job, Jim. So what are we going to talk about? Why don't we do this? Why don't you introduce yourself? Because I think you do a better job, honestly. I've known you for a bit here. We've gotten close, but you've got a long history in this world of 100% retirement, tax-free retirement, leveraging your contributions. Who are you? Where'd you come from? What do you know?
You know, and it dates me. I started in the insurance business back in '86. Had my own agency, did successful money management seminars, used my securities license, and thought I had everything figured out. And what I figured is nobody's got everything figured out. And so equity indexed annuities came out right about the time that the market started to change, and it was the way to lock in profits, still have upside potential, no downside risk. And so I went to work for a company called National Life Group, and I've been there 23 years. It's a great company. It's a mutual company, been around for 170 years, but it's got a great culture. That's enough for my plug for NLG. But really why I was saying that is when I met you, the whole concept here is anybody that knows you realizes that you kind of poke fun at the industry a little bit. You get to pick and choose who you work with because you always work for your client. If somebody's got a dog product, it's a dog product, and you call it that. There's no way that you can put a wrapper on it and make it better. So part of the reason why I wanted to do this workshop is to let people know that there are people that have relationships with big companies that are still truly independent. You get to do business with whoever you choose to do business. Mm-hmm. And you pick and choose off of a tool belt the right tool for the right client. The great thing is you have people like me trying to earn your business. That's constantly trying to show you different concepts, different products, different things for different markets so that we can be tied into your network. I think that your audience is phenomenal, the people that you're reaching out to. And so we have to earn your business every day, just like you have to earn your clients, and we have to do it by doing the right thing. So that's my brief commercial on NLG, our relationship. You know, I love this business. It's one of the things you get up every morning, and if you're still excited about what you do, it makes it a lot more fun. I woke up this morning knowing we were going to start these episodes, and I started making notes, started making sure I got everything, and I realized, look, this is what we do. Yeah. There's no notes to this. This is life. This is what we do every single day. So
people ask me all the time, like, how do you write your show out? How do you plan it out? And I'm like, I know my stuff, right? I just decide what I want to talk about or who I'm going to talk to, and we hit play on the microphone and go for it. And you're making a really good point, because part of my beef with the industry, why did I become the financial services whistleblower? Why did I come out? If you listen to the first 70 or 80 episodes, like, I'm really angry. You know what I mean? I'm like really upset. with the industry and confronting them and saying the industry needs a spanking and I'm the one to do it and blah, 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 right? It's because most advisors you would bump into are not independent fiduciaries. They're either captive to one insurance company. You mentioned you're a mutual company, and that's neutral, but there are some mutual companies. Basically, all they sell is whole life, and they have this incredible pitch, but behind the scenes, they just have this sort of ridiculously expensive product that they never changed to demutualize because it was too expensive or they didn't like it. They're selling the same exact thing to every single person. That's what captive agents do, right?
That's
Now you work for one company, but that company recruits independent agents who can either choose you or not choose you, right?
That's correct.
And can go elsewhere. And I think it's important. What people are probably more familiar with is that old pitch from the past: when banks compete, you win, or whatever, right?
Right.
So people shopping for your business is a good thing. Well, let's just ask you from inside the industry. How competitive do you need to stay when you're offering annuities and life insurance, cash accumulation? How competitive do you need to stay as an insurance carrier to win the business? I would think it's really competitive.
Well, it's funny because it's like Christmas. You get the same present every single year with a different wrapper on it. It's what bonus, what interest rate, what have they really manipulated or changed to make an old dog look like a new trick? And that's what's really wrong with this industry. When you're talking about companies that haven't changed a whole life policy for years and they're selling the same thing, well, it's really good for the company. This market has changed. Think of what interest rates were when Jimmy Carter was president. You could get a CD for 22%. You could put your money in the bank and earn 10% in a savings account.
Right.
What are you earning today? I mean, there's over $3 trillion in bank savings and loans and credit unions earning less than 2 basis points, or not even 0.5%. When we look at federal employees, 65% of the people that participate in their 401k, it's not a 401k, it's called TSP, Thrift Savings Plan, have the money in the G Fund. The G Fund is a basic interest rate. It's 2.3%.
Yeah, just cash. Like under
you know
inflation.
why they have it there? Because they don't know what else to do and they're afraid. I always laugh. Charlie, I'm going to ask you an honest question. When you were a kid, were you ever afraid of the dark?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You really weren't. What you were afraid of was what was in the dark that you couldn't see. That's why people fear retirement. They're afraid of what they don't know. And they're afraid to go trust somebody from Edward Morgan Lynch, All Snake, Snake Farm, those type of deals, because they know they're going to come out with the company line and do what's best for them, not for the client. And so it's refreshing. At first, you have to put your bulletproof vest on because you never know where you're going to come from. Being a company guy, you have to worry about, your name and your reputation. Right. In this business, you have one reputation. When it's gone, it's gone. And so everything that I've done in my 23-year career has been about concept and making sure that the product fits the client. My client is you, your client is the public. And if you dupe somebody, news travels fast, both good and bad. And so part of this is making sure, and today we're going to talk about retiring with 100% of your income and what that means. And what does that mean to families out there, individuals? I kind of laugh. I don't mean to pick on the industry, but my favorite commercial out there, Charlie, and you and I have talked about this, is the Fisher Investments. They have a 150-foot yacht in this turquoise blue water with an island in the background, beautiful palm trees, and they say, Fisher Investments, if you have $500,000 or more, call Fisher Investments. What they're really saying is, if you don't have $500,000 or more, don't call us. We don't want to do business with you.
Right. That's called a minimum, right?
Right. That's middle income America. That's me, you, everybody else out there that's trying to make it. Who has $500,000 just sitting around to call up Fisher Investments? Quite honestly, I wouldn't call them just because of that commercial, but it is what it is. I'm not trying to poke fun at anyone. It's just that's who they're looking for.
Yeah. Not
a lot of people go after that middle income market. And we've made a niche. My whole career has been built off working with middle income America.
It's an important thing to talk about because setting a minimum is a pretty common practice, especially among people that do assets under management or kind of want to put everything in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and charge a fee. And because I came from poverty, I literally had half a house. We lived in one half of the house, had half a bedroom. There was a wall going into the window. So I had a wall going into the window in my room. Half a family, it was just my mom, and then half a breakfast. So I just ate, we didn't have the milk, but we had the cereal. So I put water and orange juice in my cereal. How's that sound? We grew up poor, right? But I always thought, why would I say like you have to be worth $500,000 or $1 million to get help from us, as opposed to have a continual training program for retirement renovators in my company, and the more experienced person takes everybody with $1 million up. The second most experienced person takes everybody from 500, $500,000 to $1 million, and then the person who's newer but still passed all their training and expert take everybody from 0 to $500,000. Why would we say no to anybody instead of just having tiers? Because it's still great business if somebody only has $200,000 in their life. They still need good advice. They're a human being, right? They deserve the advice.
Well, and they still have to be able to retire and retire with dignity. That's a big deal in America. I just got back from Argentina, where there's a really upper class and a really lower class. And it was ironic because you look at America, still the greatest country in the world, not even a close second. But we have an unforgotten group, and it's that middle income American. We all go to work. We all have a 401k, a pension, whatever it may be. But that's not going to cover 100%. We deal a lot with teachers, nurses, nonprofits, because they don't have a 401k. They have a state pension or a pension from the hospital, but then they have what's called a 403b. It's just like a 401k, but instead of being a group policy, it's an individual policy, which means it's not managed. It's selected by the individual. We already talked about why are people afraid of retirement? It's the unknown. They don't know what to do. So what do? They put it in the least expensive, least earning account available. I always call it the big heist. If it's what bankers and financial institutions don't want you to know, that they're investing your money. They're borrowing it from the government. They're turning around and loaning it to you, or letting you put your money in there, and they're investing it long-term, and they're making a lot of money off of it. When they're only paying you 2 basis points, even if you have a CD and you put it in there for a year, if you're getting more than 50 basis points, that's a heist. If I went to you and said, hey, Charlie, you've got $100,000. If you let me hold it, I'll pay you 1%. You'd say, hey, look, there's the guy from The Sopranos again in New Jersey. It's no, I'm not going to do that. Why do we do it at the bank? It's the only thing we know what to do. It's what our parents did. It's what our grandparents did. I'm just here to say it's not the right thing to do. There are better options, even for your safe money, than to put it in the bank.
That's awesome. Let me say one more thing, and then we'll jump into this. You talked about how, was I afraid of the dark? Yes. Charlie, you really weren't afraid of the dark. You were afraid of what you thought maybe was in there or what might be in there, right?
The unknown.
The unknown. Another coach in my life from a long time ago, he's more of a real estate coach. His name is Joe Stumpf. Stumpf. How's that last name? Stumpf with an F, a P and an F. He used to say this. He would say fear or skill replaces fear. So if you don't know how to ski and you're standing at the top of a double diamond, for those of you who don't know, a double diamond is like a super hard, majorly steep slope with lots of moguls, and it's just terrible. It's like a cliff, basically, right? So if you're at the top of a double diamond gym and you don't know how to ski, you're a beginner, how are you feeling?
You're feeling like turning around and walking down.
Yeah, you probably won't even do it, or you'll slide down on your butt, right? But as someone becomes a better skier, and they know they can crush that hill, well, then what are they feeling?
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline.
Enjoying. You're not afraid. You when you stand on top of that mountain and can't see the bottom because the moguls are so big, it's fight or flight. And what I think where you're going is the experience makes it to where that's enjoyable. There is no fear.
That's the whole point of the show, and the entire educational approach is to make people double diamond level skiers as far as retirement is concerned. We're trying to give you, as our listeners, all of what you need to know to look at retirement and go, I got this, and have that positive anticipation that you're not only going to hit those moguls, you're going to jump and do some tricks in midair and land them and listen to everybody cheer. And that's why we have Jim on the show. Jim is an expert in the kind of areas that he's specialized in. He mentioned equity indexed annuities earlier on. I think we should just mention, most people have dropped the term equity because it's confusing, but indexed annuities, that just means you purchased a contract with an insurance company and it measures against some index. When that index goes down, you don't make anything, but there are no losses. And in many of the contracts, there's not even any fees. No losses when the market goes down. And when it goes up, you get a piece of it, 50% of it, or the first 5, or, the insurance company gets 3 and you get the rest of it. There's some sharing of returns. So there's no losses and some of the returns. And Jim, I've gone and measured this. I've gone and measured this with a simple 50% participation rate on the S&P 500. And from the year 2000 to the year 2017, the indexed annuity would have made 38% more than even the market. So one more thing, and then we'll jump into this. You mentioned a long time ago that CDs were paying, 12% or something like that, right?
Back in the Carter days.
In the Jimmy Carter days. Literally, financial planning or retirement planning, there was a time when retirement planning was our grandparents sold the farm, they put the money in the bank, and lived off of it. That was as complicated as it got, right?
They would ladder CDs and retire off that.
And that was the entire financial planning world. And then when that stopped producing the rate of return, when interest rates went from 12 to 9 to 8 to 7 to 6 to 5 to 4, the entire industry, all the smartest people in the world, from colleges, from financial planning institutions like you and I, economists, they got together and said, what are we going to do? And everything that we've known, everything that my listeners are used to and what I call joker brokers came as the solution, which is we need to put it into asset optimization. We need to put it into the market and spread it around. So it's not like you put your entire nest egg in steel. Spread it around among different things because some go down, some go up. And Jim, that worked from the 70s, 80s, 90s. That worked up until 2000, 2001. And so I'm not bad-mouthing the market from 1970 to 1999, right?
Right.
The problem is we're now sitting 10 years too late at the time where that stopped working. Exactly when CDs stopped paying, the market has now stopped paying that. It doesn't feel like that for people because they lost a ton of money in 2008 and 9 and have nothing but growth since. But 6 or 7 of those years, we're just getting back to zero, right? If you measure the market from 2000 until 2017, it's only gone up about 5.3% compounding. That is not enough for people to risk losses, particularly like what's happened this week. You've been watching the market this week, right?
Yeah. How would you like to have retirement for this Friday?
Yeah, exactly.
Change your plans.
See, one of the things I like about you, and when I watch you speak and listen to your materials, I like that you say things, sometimes similar things, but you say them differently. You have your own language. And one of the things you say that I really like is if you retire on Friday with $60,000 a year of income, you need to wake up Monday with $60,000 a year of income, right?
You have to.
This show is on 100%, how to retire with 100% of your income. So question for you. I imagine through the advisors you work with, and just one of them you introduced me to, a new friend of mine has done 20,000 appointments just with teachers, I think, right?
Right.
Teachers and veterans, but that's a lot of appointments. Will Social Security and someone's pension replace 100% of their income without any other help?
Well, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to answer the question. A lot of teachers don't even have Social Security, depending on the state that they're in. They don't participate. They've opted out. Most teachers have a net 42% loss of spendable income the day they retire. Because they no longer are an employee of the district. They have to go on to what's called TRS care, or retirement care from the state, but still they have to pay for it. And they have to do a joint survivorship, which means if they want to continue with their spouse receiving their pension benefits after they pass away, they have to pay for it. They have to pay what's called a premium. Kind of sounds like life insurance, right?
Yeah, and I'm guessing they decide that up front, and then if their spouse dies, they don't get a boost. They're still stuck on the old lower income, right?
They are, but if the spouse dies in most states, then they don't have to pay that extra premium. It reverts back. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole deal is most teachers statistically are females. Most females live longer than men. So traditionally, 95% take the joint survivorship option.
Right.
They pay the premium. If they die, their spouse continues to receive that benefit after their death. They get it monthly, not in a lump sum. And it's taxable.
Right.
Where if you just showed teachers, nurses, middle income America, instead of paying that premium, purchase a life insurance policy from a life insurance company, you would get that for the same premium. You'd get that benefit lump sum. You could take it in payments if you want, but like I do, if somebody wins the lottery, how do they take it? Lump sum or lifetime payout? They want it lump sum.
Yeah.
And it's 100% tax free.
And we're talking about pension max, and I'll explain that. If we're talking about pension max, right?
Correct.
So for the listeners, one of the first things I ever learned in this industry was a strategy called Pension Max, and it doesn't have to be teachers, but whenever somebody's offered a pension, which, by the way, is the biggest institutions in the world saying, you know what really takes care of retirement income better than anything else? Annuities. They're giving you annuity quotes. They're giving you single premium annuity quotes for single life or dual life. When they give you those quotes, they're going to go something like this. If it's only for your life, you get $3,000 a month. But if you want your spouse to have income if you die, it's going to be $2,200 a month or $2,000 a month. It's always lower, right?
Correct.
So you're giving up $800 a month of money in today's value for possible continuation of income if you happen to pass away first. What Jim is saying, and what I was trained on is, or you could just take the $3,000 a month and buy a life insurance policy on your life, a big chunk of tax-free money if you pass away. Sometimes that only costs $400, $500, $600 a month instead of the $800 you're going to be giving up. And that's what we want to compare, Jim, right? Is
correct.
If you're going to either continue a stream of income for someone, or they get a big chunk of tax-free money that we turn into a stream, right? Which one's cheaper? It's a commodity at that point. One costs $800. Is the other one better? Is it a better deal, right? Or maybe it's better because it's tax-free.
I always say, do you want to pay for a benefit from the state, a governmental entity, or from a company that has to be regulated, that is, long-term, been around, that's what they do for a living? And that the only catch there, Charlie, you have to qualify. You have to be able to qualify. So what we tell most planners is talk to your clients early. Don't wait till the day they're retiring to talk about Pension Max. Show them early what that benefit is. Do it when they can pay for it with pennies on the dollars versus the entire amount. Then when you save somebody $800 and the actual cost is $200, you're saving them $600 net at retirement. It's a big difference.
Now, let's talk a little bit about, I know this isn't one of the shows we're going to do. We're going to do 3 shows. Jim Carroll, part 1, part 2, part 3, because Jim is just the coolest guy ever, so he gets 3 shows.
It's called the trilogy, right?
The trilogy, the Jim Carroll Matrix. We are, we don't even have a show titled this, but the new life insurance, right? So somebody does this. Say they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to give up $800 a month in my pension if I use the government version, but if I use this private company that's regulated, it only costs $600 a month. That's great. And then they do it. They have life insurance on themselves, and then their spouse predeceases them. Like you said, most teachers are women. They live longer. Their husband dies. And they're like, oh, I don't need this life insurance anymore. Or do you? Because what has changed? I think you guys might have been the leader at NLG. You might have been the leader in this, but what has changed with life insurance where, yes, you bought it for death benefit, but if that need doesn't exist anymore, what are the other options for that death benefit while you're still alive?
Well, do you care if I tell a quick story with this? I mean, it's easier to understand. My uncle, I didn't even wait for you to say yes. Did you notice?
I know.
Your show, I just hijacked it.
You didn't even give me time to make microwave popcorn. It's story time with Jim Carroll.
But my uncle owned a meat market since I was a young kid. He's my favorite uncle. I shouldn't say that now. I just said it live on the air to thousands of your listeners. But an uncle that pays attention, really caters to the kids at Thanksgiving. He was my favorite uncle. He was fun. I totally respected him because he worked extremely hard. If you know, owning a meat market, you're up at 4 o'clock in the morning cutting meat. The ladies would come in and say, Mr. Rich, what kind of meat do you have today? And he'd say, I have ham, ram, lamb, sheep, mutton, cow, pig, and goose liver. And I was like, what in the world is that? That's
like when I did long life, short life, rough life, sick life, next life. I've never said mutton, meat, liver, whatever. I don't know what you just said.
So it's funny because Costco, Sam's, Kroger, all the big chains have gotten into the meat market. You have a custom meat market now, and it drove him basically out of the business. He sold his business, did well because he had quite a following. And when he did, he built his retirement house. He lived in the same house that he had lived in the entire time I had known him since he had married my aunt. He built this new house, and as we were walking through, I noticed in every room, I was kind of getting that, He had the big screen TVs,
nice.
And he had them all custom wired in. It's a guy thing. We just like our TVs. The bigger, the better. It's the first thing we notice in a room. But when I went out into his shop, he had built a wood shop. He had a TV that was from Sears and Roebuck. And for your millennials that are listening, you don't even know what that is, but that's what Sears used to be. It used to be Sears and Roebuck. It was a black and white TV, and it had the antennas. And I'm standing up right now trying to show the antennas with my arms above my head, the rabbit ears. And they had aluminum foil on each end. And the channels, when you'd change them, they go click, 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 click. And you had maybe 3 on traditional channels, and maybe you could get 2 on the UFH if you had good reception.
Yep.
And I asked him, I said, Uncle Wayne, why in the world? I said, I've looked at this house. It's beautiful, state of the art. It's your dream retirement home. Why do you still have that TV? And he said, well, your aunt and I bought that with the Sears and Roebuck credit card when we first got married, and we're still paying on that. So I feel like I still am paying on that TV. I can't get rid of it. Yeah, I kind of chuckle, but I thought, wow, that's true. I mean, we use the things that we have, and we hate to get rid of them, especially if we're still paying on them. I'll go into that later, but life insurance is something that a lot of these policies, I use the federal government. They have Figley Life for all their employees. It was built in 1952. I mean, it has not changed since 1952, and I'm not knocking it. They have, a good policy. It's a group policy, but you have to die to use that. It means that if I'm paying the premium, I have to die for my spouse or beneficiaries to receive anything.
Yeah.
The new style, how many channels do we have now, Charlie, on TV? Thousands?
Like thousands, yeah.
However many you want to pay for. If you don't have a 65-inch TV, you're just like, people are like, what are you doing here? They make 80-inch TVs now. And the newest thing for me, Charlie, is they have the channel changers that are like Siri. I'm a little afraid of Siri. It's one woman that I haven't conquered yet. My wife understands me. Siri talks back to me. They have the channel changers that you can say, I want to see the USC-Texas football game. It finds it. If it's not on, it programs it to come on at the right time. I don't have one of those yet, but I definitely want one. So the difference is when you have the old style where you have to die to use it, the new style is you can have what's called living benefits. You don't have to die to use the policy. Number one, there's cash value if you build it that way that you can use to live off of in retirement tax-free. But the big thing is if you become critically, chronically, or terminally ill, or critically injured, you can use this policy. And the greatest example I use is if someone has a stroke and survives, the biggest problem they have is it's a long-term rehab, 6 months at the most, or at the least, sometimes longer. Well, if they have disability, they're getting 60% of their income, so they've lost 40, and then they have out of pocket. What are they going to do? Well, if they have a $500,000 policy on the new style with living benefits, they can pull $100,000 of their money. They don't have to request or be approved for it. They just fill out a form and say, I need $100,000. That has to be documented by a doctor, of course. They can use that money to supplement their income and take care of the living expense. And then when they're ready to go back to work, go back to work.
Whoa. Hold on. Let me jump in here. Tell the story of our friend. You and I have a dear friend. His wife had a breast cancer scare that, thank God, it went away, right?
It did.
But talk about what he was paying for her traditional life insurance in case, she passed away. He needed to replace income or whatever. But talk about that story, what happened, because that's real life.
Well, I don't want to say names, but it's one that, we sell products all the time and we help people. But when it hits home is when it's somebody you know or care about. Yeah. And a friend of ours was talking, and you could tell on his voice he was in a bad place.
And he's a man's man. I mean, he's every time I call the guy, he's got a beer in his hands and he's barbecuing at somebody else's house.
Works out all the time. He doesn't show a soft side at all.
No.
But you could hear him almost, I'll be honest, you could hear him crying. Mm-hmm. I mean, and when one man hears that from another man, I don't mean to sound egotistical, but it is what it is. It's like you get a lump in your throat. He said his wife had found a lump in her breast that they wanted to do surgery within a week, and they were going to have to do a double mastectomy. They were running a few tests, but he was in a bad place, and they were in between insurance policies, so there was a lot of out-of-pocket expense. And I didn't know what to say, and I kind of got off the phone, and I was sitting there driving down the road, and I said, what are we doing here? What do I do for a living? I picked the phone. I said, hey, man, your wife has a life policy that you bought with living benefits. She's covered for all of that.
Yeah.
And you could just hear him, and I could hear him start to sob. And it was like, You're kidding. I can't believe it. It was so out of touch. She did this for a living, but when it became real was when it was him. We got on the phone, called the claims department. They sent out a claims form that day. Thank God. Later that week, they found out that it was just a mass, that it was not malignant. They were able to remove it without the whole procedure, and it was not cancer. But it hit real to me. It became very real when it was a friend of mine, and it was tangible.
And if it was like, say it had become cancer, because a lot of women are going through this, what were the monthly premiums they were paying for the policy versus how much money NLG was going to front them to go get care?
Well, he had $500,000 worth of death benefit, and he was paying $200 a month. You could tell she was a little bit younger.
Yeah.
But we would have advanced up to almost I don't know the exact number, $450,000 had it been cancer to be used along the way. Again, doctor has to actually verify. Same thing with the stroke. It has to be verified by a licensed physician. The only difference, like on that stroke, is instead of having $500,000 of death benefit, they would now have $400,000.
Yeah.
They were able to use that benefit while still living. They didn't have to die to use it.
And I'm gonna tie this into how this works with retiring with 100% of your income in a minute. But let me just say, like, I'm in Southern California, and I take my girlfriend to Mexico for dental work because it's like $1,950 instead of $6,000 or something like that for braces and things like that. And in the cancer world, I mean, I have a friend that ran a retreat. He was the vegan chef. Actually, there's a episode 114 with Ian Grove. Ian Grove used to be the vegan chef, the raw food chef at the only retreat in the United States where they're allowed to do Gerson therapy, which is a cancer curing nutritional approach. But it's really not allowed in the U.S. It's only allowed in other countries. The way you guys provide this accelerated death benefit, they don't have to stay here and do traditional allopathic drugs and surgery only. You know what I mean? They can go find the places in the world that have 70, 80% success rate and go there, right?
Charlie, if I'm diagnosed with a terminal illness and someone gives me 18 months, first thing I'm going to do is find the best experimental treatment. Because if they tell me there's not one here in the United States, I'm going to find one. And I'm going to use my death benefit, as much of it as I can, to go at least swing the bat and give it a shot. Yeah. I'm going to fly to Europe, fly to Brazil, wherever it may be, where that experimental treatment is getting, even if it's just 50, 60% success ratio, I don't have a shot here. It's terminal.
Yeah.
And so again, you're using that death benefit while still living, which is a unique concept. It's not brand new, but if you bought your policy years ago, it's absolutely something you should look at, because you've got the old TV with the rabbit ears and the click, click, click.
Yeah.
You need the new TV, man. I mean, you need to be able to talk to Siri and say, hey, I need some help. And she helps you out. It's the same analogy.
Yep. So here's how this applies, listeners. We're going to get back on track here. That was an awesome rabbit trail. We're going to get back on track for how this applies to 100% income. We don't know what's going to happen in your retirement. You might have a long life, a short life, a rough life, a sick life. And if nothing happens and everything goes perfect and you live to 120, you guys die holding hands, looking into each other's eyes, then we want to plan for the next life. But this idea of sick life, if you don't have something like this in your life where someone else is paying for ridiculously expensive care, whether it be for cancer or you just have the traditional Alzheimer's and go to a nursing home or dementia or whatever, you got to pay $8,000, $9,000 a month. If you don't have someone else paying for that or haven't planned for that, that's going to come out of the account you're trying to live off of. And then that's going to affect long life and everything else. So if you have $600,000 left over and you got to spend $300,000-$400,000 on some medical expense, and you die and leave your spouse with only a third of what you had, only $200,000, they're now in trouble for having enough income for the rest of their life. So this plays right into this 100% income conversation. But Jim, what else? If somebody knows for a fact that, Social Security is only going to cover 20, 25% of their income replacement, it wasn't designed to, replace income forever for as long as we need it. And then their pension and other things might replace, if they have it, right? Not everybody even has a pension. Might replace another 20 or 30, or if they have no pension, the other 75% is 100% up to them. Really, we'll talk about this in another podcast, but really the question then becomes, if you're going to save your own money, if you're going to save streams of money monthly to save up a chunk of money that you then turn into streams of money at retirement, because retirement is 30, 40 years of unemployment, right? The question becomes, if you're going to have 75% of your income coming from your savings, do you want it to be paid back to you where you owe taxes to the IRS, or do you want it to be completely and 100% tax-free?
Pretty obvious answer, right?
We have a movie coming out. Have you seen the trailer for the Power of Zero?
I have not.
You know David McKnight. I interviewed him on my show. He wrote a book called The Power of Zero. He's actually now got a documentary coming out called The Power of Zero. I played the trailer at the last time I spoke publicly. This is becoming a big deal. David Walker quitting his job and traveling the country and saying taxes need to double or they need to cut benefits in half. You and I know, talking about Jimmy Carter and politics, you and I know there's never going to be a group of politicians that are trying to get voted back in that are going to tell the biggest group of people that have ever lived, until the millennials, they're going to tell the baby boomers, oh, by the way, we're about to cut your Social Security and Medicare benefits in half. Sorry. They're not going to do that. They're going to raise taxes, don't you think?
Well, we're spending more now as a country than we ever have. And there's only two ways we're going to lower that $20 trillion in debt is tax more or spend less. I mean, we can't even get people to vote different than party lines. And I want this to be apolitical, but you're not going to get them to agree on spending less. It's going to come down to the American people and tax more. And so when we ask people that retirement question, when you retire, Charlie, you're going to get your money one of three ways: taxable, tax deferred, or tax free. How would you like to receive your money? What's the obvious answer?
100% tax free, right? And the stock market can't do that. Like, what I want people to understand, there's three places. There's always been three places to kind of put money. And I'm not talking about real estate investors and all that, which is wonderful, but real estate investing is a job. You put your time in. It's not a passive investment necessarily. There's bank products, there's the market, and there's insurance company products, right? So the banks dominated in the 80s, like you said. Our grandparents just did laddered CDs, right?
Right.
When they stopped working, next was the market, and the market did really well. And nobody should, I'm not even bad-mouthing the time the market did well when I say things like Joker Broker. I'm bad-mouthing the fact that they're delivering inaccurate data now. Because Jim, you just came home from, where was it? What country were you in?
Buenos Aires, Argentina.
So you're in Argentina, right? You land back at the airport. You're going to drive to your house. Did you check the traffic reports from 1984?
I did not.
No, because who gives? Who cares, right? You check today's traffic. If you're going to go to Buenos Aires, did you look at the weather from the 90s? No one cares about traffic reports or weather from 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. We only care about today and, more importantly, the estimate for the future, right? Well,
right.
The fact that the stock market did well in the 70s, 80s, and 90s means absolutely nothing for today's retiree, because there was a 10-year period where it made nothing. And from 2000 to 2017, only compounded at like 5.3. Then you throw in the excessive fees in there and you're down to 3 or 4, right? So it was the banks for a while. Then it was the market. I'm not an annuity guy. I'm not an insurance guy. I'm just an honest financial advisor carrying all the licenses necessary. I'm just telling you, today, retirees, insurance companies have better solutions for retirees, because guess what? Surprise, surprise. During the distribution phase of life, not the accumulation phase when you're working, but the distribution phase when you're living off of your assets, what do you need? You need income that lasts forever. You need your spouse to have income if you die. You need to have money for long-term care. If something bad happens, then you might want to leave an inheritance. Jim, am I reaching here? Am I selling? Am I biased? Isn't it just basic fact that insurance companies do a better job for lifetime income, paying for long-term care and sickness-related issues, and giving money to a spouse or leaving money to a loved one when you die than the market and the banks do?
Well, it's the basic analogy. What do insurance companies do? They defer risk. You defer risk to the insurance company. The insurance company takes on the risk by spreading it out. Most products are built for retirement. Most products are built to replace your income should you have a premature death. That's what insurance companies do. I mean, my grandfather, greatest example, and I thought, he was a businessman, owned a lumber yard, owned a grocery store. That's why I learned about laddered CDs. But what he would do after he had the laddered CDs and he had his guaranteed income, which was to replace what he lived on, that's when he bought his blue chip stocks, his Exxon, AT&T, those type companies. Those were the over and above the 100% income. And so I'm not a knock on that. What I'm saying is you've got to secure that 100% income with no so money, not hope so money. If you're in the market, that's hope so money. There's no guarantees. It's being afraid of the dark because you don't know what's going to happen. Hell, we hadn't had a correction in 10 years. Look at this week. I don't think this is a correction. I think it's the Fed raising interest rates for the third time in the year. It's a sell-off. It'll come back. But what if? What if this was and you were retiring this Friday? Cancel the retirement party because it's not happening. You can't afford to. You said it earlier. Saving money for retirement is accumulation. It's inherently different than distribution. Why? Because when we're saving for retirement, if we have a bad month or the market changes, we keep throwing money at it. It's dollar cost averaging, right?
Yep.
But what happens in retirement? We can't throw anything at it anymore. It's a finite number. When it goes down, it goes down.
Right.
And if we're heavily invested in the market in a retirement mode or position, we're screwed. I don't mean it. I'm just being honest.
No, you should be honest. I did 4 episodes called 4 Google searches you must do, and one of them was on sequence of returns. And that sounds like a geeky term, but all it really means is what used to be awesome for dollar cost averaging when you were putting money in is the opposite of awesome when you're taking money out. If it was incredibly helpful when you were putting money in to have the market going up and down, when you're taking money out in income and the market goes down and then you take more out, it's crushing. I mean, it absolutely will crush your retirement accounts, and you will run, if you do not find an income solution like an annuity or maybe non-guaranteed income, but it's completely tax-free. If you don't find that and you do the same exact thing you did during the growth phase, just risk with a side of fees, it's not going to go very well. The current estimates, Jim, are if you have $1 million and you leave it in the old model, so you're over 18 and you stay with your pediatrician. You never leave the doctor that doesn't have the skills and go to one that does. You just stay in the old model. If you have $1 million in your portfolio, you can only take out $28,000 a year pre-tax and hopefully run out of money on the day you die. No inheritance, no long-term care, just basic die on the day you hit zero. That's a terrible financial plan to have no inheritance, no money for long-term care, and get a 2.8% return, maybe, if things go well. Why would anyone do that?
And Charlie, what happens if that correction happens in the first year of retirement and you just lose 10% of that total in the first year?
Sequence of returns. When do you get your ups and when do you get your downs?
Yeah, you could lose a third of your retirement estimate or lifetime income if that happens in the first year.
See, hope is not a financial plan. And from my understanding, 14 years in, you've got 23 years experience just with one company. Hope is not a financial plan. And that's what the stock market offers is we hope it goes up. Insurance companies in general, the whole model is people pay you so they don't have to hope for anything. They just know.
And you said something that hit a note. People have to evolve. The markets evolve. You can't do what your grandfather did. A lot of people say you have 23 years experience. Well, a lot of people have 1 year's experience 23 times. They don't learn from the mistakes of the past. They don't look. They do what everyone else has done because that's the regular way. Sometimes you have to look at the way the world around you has changed and how products have changed and how the industry has changed. My whole goal in working with brokers like you is I have to earn your business. First, I have to make sure it passes your litmus test before you'll show it to your clients. But think about it like this. We want a plan that receives or conveys 100% of their income to the client. So if they're going to have a net 42% loss of spendable income the day they retire, I want on Monday morning for them to still get that, but I want it to keep up with inflation. And secondly, I want it to happen whether you're there or not. I want you to be able to have taught them that this is a secure plan that works whether I'm here or not. It's a plug in, develop, and play. If you decide to go off to that island that's in the Fisher Investments deal because you won the lottery, that plan is self-sufficient and not going to be obsolete because the market changes.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do as planners.
Yep. Tell me if you agree with this, then we'll wrap it up, okay?
Okay.
When I teach publicly, so I teach in Chicago, northern San Diego, Honolulu, and Scottsdale right now. When I teach publicly, I now say mystery income, like just taking money out of a stock portfolio and hoping it lasts is not even a plan at all. That's just gambling, right?
Right.
So there's really three ways you can take income. There's good, there's better, there's best. Good would be guaranteed income. And we're just assuming it's taxable, either on full income or on the growth or whatever. But if it's guaranteed, meaning it's going to be there, pension-like income for the rest of your life as long as you can live. That's good. That's a huge step in the right direction, particularly if it's 4, 5, 6% of your assets instead of 2.8. We agree on that?
We agree.
Better would be guaranteed increasing income, which can come from laddered annuities, any type of laddering, a couple of annuities, and then life insurance behind it, some sort of annuity with an increasing income adjustment, but splitting your annuity income into 12 policies and turning on 8 of them and then turning on one more every 5 years. There's all kinds of ways to do it, but guaranteed increasing income would be even better because we're trying to keep up with what?
Inflation.
The cost of freaking gas is like outrageous, right? The holy grail of retirement income would be guaranteed increasing tax-free income, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, if you could design a plan that's perfect, that's what you'd want.
And that's what I've been doing for 14 years. It's why we harp on everything we harp on. It's why when somebody gives us $1 million, we don't do an annuity for $1 million. We do 20 annuities for $50,000 and a combination of life insurance. Because annuities, all the money in your life, if you believe taxes are going to go up, we can convert all the pre-tax money to Roth IRAs and create tax-free income. You get a divorce. You divorce the IRS. Are divorces worth it? Yes, they are. Sometimes they are. You pay the money and you're done with it. One and done. And then life insurance, of course, is tax-free income. If you're in a 0% tax bracket and they double taxes, what's 2 times 0, Jim? You've been in the industry long enough to do some math. What's 2 times 0?
Still 0.
It's still 0. It doesn't matter. Just get out of the game of, I wonder what the IRS is going to do, right? That's what we do. 100% retirement income, whether it's guaranteed income, guaranteed increasing income, or tax-free guaranteed increasing income. Jim, imagine you and I know you're upper level, too busy to sit down with every one of my clients. It's not out of the question that some of the people may end up talking to you and I, doing some of the strategies we'll talk about on Jim Carroll Part 3, right? But if you and I sat in a room on a TV show and said, bring us 1,000 people, and we sat down and looked at their financial plans, just the average person and what they're doing in the United States, and you and I, the TV show was going to say, how many people can you improve, without increasing their expenditure at all? And we just looked at their efficiencies, how they're using money, where they're investing it. How many out of 1,000 people do you think we could show without spending any more that they could net a little bit more or lower their risk, lower their taxes, get a little bit higher net income? How many people do you think we could help out of 1,000 between the two of us?
80%. Easy.
At least, right? At least. I asked the same question of Ian Grove, and he says, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I feel like it's 100%. You know what I mean? To say 80 just means you're conservative and kind and awesome. It's epidemic how bad retirement planning, the traditional retirement plan is. You know what they asked Henry Ford? They said, why don't you survey your clients? Why don't you ask people what they want? You know what he said?
What?
He said, if I asked people what they want, they would have said faster horses.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not asking people. I don't run a business where I survey the market and say, what do retirees want? Because they would say better stocks.
You'd be a politician then, right?
I'm making cars. I'm making the Model T of retirement planning. Folks, you don't need better stocks or faster horses. You need a completely different vehicle that goes 10, 20, 30 times faster because it's today's best option. We don't need what worked in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now, funny we say this because there's this group called E.F. Hutton, and what did they discover in the 80s? Right? That money works better inside of life insurance, so much so that the crybaby joker brokers had to lobby Congress in 1998 and pass TAMRA, where they said, oh my gosh, if you're going to put money in life insurance, you at least have to slow it down and do it over 5 years so the crybaby joker brokers don't lose the money all at once. Am I exaggerating?
No, that's how it happened.
The crybaby joker brokers had to get help from the government because their product is so much worse than life insurance. And that's why we can't fund in year one. We have to spread it out over 5 to 7 years. If any of you have watched my videos at jewettwealth.com/homework or on watchcharlie.com, this is not a joke. The times have changed, just like CDs used to pay 12, 11, 12%. Then they stopped. We had to find something else. Listeners, the market
doesn't pay what it used to, even though it's had a run up like we've never seen. It still isn't compounding anywhere near worth the risk. And yet at the same time, life insurance and annuities have been beating the pants off of it for compound growth over that same time frame. It just means times have changed and you have to change with the times. Don't be addicted to the stock market. That's not healthy. I'm on my soapbox, Jim. Calm me down. Say something good here at the end.
I'm going to wrap it up with this because this is not a plug for the next episode. But when we talk about retiring with 100% of your income, the biggest objection or the biggest thing that most middle income Americans say is, I can't afford it. I've got kids that I'm saving for school. I've got Little League. I've got braces. I've got dance classes. I got life. Stuff happens. And so part of what we're going to talk about in the next episode is how do you find the money? And there's 3 ways. One, the big bank heist. Find out where you can reallocate money. Second's dead money. And dead money means money that is not being managed. It's not being used. It is just dead. It's sitting there. And you can tell it's dead money because there's buzzards over the top circling it. And then last, and this is my soapbox, is to go from loanership to ownership. You have to get out of debt. Consumer debt will cripple any plan that you have. You have to become financially free. So we'll cover those 3 things in the next episode that talk about how do you afford to become to where you can fund a tax-free retirement plan and retire with 100% of your income without changing your current lifestyle. It's called reallocation.
And I don't want to, or wealth transfers, right? I don't want to name drop, but I've taken extensive training from both Don Blanton at Circle of Wealth and Len Ranier at Wealth and Wisdom. And I think their average, looking at probably hundreds of thousands of cases, right? If you think about those guys' reach, right? Hundreds of thousands of cases. Would you agree that most Americans have $500 to $800 a month that's just going unnecessarily and unknowingly to just complete and total waste? And all we have to do is capture it and stop paying taxes and fees and redirect it towards your own retirement. And all of a sudden, at no change in your monthly spending, so basically free, all of a sudden your retirement can have a huge boost. Would you agree with that 500 to 800 estimate?
Out of that 80% that we talked about of the 1,000,
yeah,
our average income would be from $750 to $1,500 per month without changing their take-home pay 1 penny.
So we can increase someone's retirement $750 a month to $1,500 a month, possibly tax-free, right? Which makes it more like $1,000 to $2,000.
Correct.
Just with redirecting money they're already spending, but they're spending it on things that aren't helping them. So we're not going to increase. I mean, anybody can come along and say, oh, if you don't go to Starbucks every day and you spend $600 a month and put it into retirement, life will be better. But you don't get your Starbucks every day, right?
Yeah, that doesn't work.
We're not talking about that. We're not talking about sacrifice. We're talking about asset optimization or wealth transfers and redirecting them. If you had a choice to give the government $1,000 a month, the IRS, or pay yourself $1,000 a month, which would you do?
Pretty easy. I love this country, but I want it to go in my bank account, not theirs.
That's what we're talking about, is recapturing this. So we're going to jump into that on the next episode, and I will plug it. We're going to come back, listen to Jim Carroll Part 2, because we're going to talk about how to find the money. Everybody would love to fund their retirement, but we're going to find the money with Jim Carroll in Part 2. Anything else you want to say in closing?
No, hey, this has been fun. I'm all fired up now. We're not going to record this next episode till later, so now I got to find some way to come down. Maybe I'll go work out, go bounce a golf ball and run a little. I don't know. I'm excited to come back and talk about the next episode because it's something I'm truly passionate about.
And besides his incredible wisdom and experience, the other reason you should really listen to Jim Carroll is because he owns a white German Shepherd, and that's rare. It's almost like Gandalf in the what is it, the second Lord of the Rings, where he's like Gandalf the White, right?
And he's a beautiful dog. He's my buddy, man.
What's his name?
Bolt. Just like Disney, man. I had 3 kids. I know. I didn't get to name him.
You have a white dog named Bolt. I'm sure his middle name is Lightning, right?
There we go.
Now we're talking. All right, guys, this has been Jim Carroll Part 1. Hopefully this is helpful. You should retire on Friday and wake up on Monday. The first day of retirement, you should wake up with exactly the same income. Jim and I can help you do that. If you need help, get in touch. Charlie at JewettWealth.com, CHARLIE at JEWETT wealth.com, or you can call us 888-285-27 2268. We're going to do 2 more episodes with Jim because he's such a stud. He needs a trifecta. Why do we do this? Because you people are the best. Ciao.
But that's all, folks.